And we're wasting our time in Ukraine. We're fighting a war that we're going to lose. We're going to get. It's humiliating that we're lying about it from the beginning. There hasn't been any truth told in any American newspaper that I've seen. It's unbelievable that people are brainwashed in this country and they believe what they read in the Washington Post or they see on the television networks. It's just so, isn't it? I mean, do you ever hear of one? Do you ever hear the Russian side of the story? I know I haven't heard it. Maybe some brave soul has done it. But if you so much as try to give the Russian side of the story, you're considered an apologist for Putin. You saw my Putin interviews back in 2000, I was 17 or 18. I was called all kinds of things again, but all it was is a set of questions for him. And the film doesn't take an editorial position. It just lets him speak in his own voice. If you look at all the American shows about Putin, by the way, people don't realize this, but they're seeing a dubbed version of his voice. They don't even see the real voice that Putin does. So you're getting this bluff, angry, bluffing kind of Russian caricature of a Russian man. It's not the way he is at all. He's very soft spoken. He's a statesman. He has the same qualities as Kennedy. He sees the long picture and he's very patient. If he hadn't been so patient, we would probably be at war now with Russia, considering the things we have done in Ukraine. And a lot of dirty shit has gone down, believe me. That war started, by the way, in 2014. There's no question. That war started. And you were right about that, Jose, to call out, what's her name? And Alexandra Ocas Rios or whatever.
Ocasio Cortez, yeah.
Ocasio Cortez. Yeah, she's smart. I think she could learn, but they don't want to learn. They don't. They're like Nikki Haley. There's a kind of I can't go there because I know it's not politically, uh, it's a negative politically for me to in any way empathize with Russia, which is ridiculous considering that these are the two most strongest nuclear powers in the world, and we're at the edge, at the very edge of pulling that trigger, which of course would be a disaster for America, and we would lose much, much more than Russia is losing. If, our industry, our economy would go to shit. Anyway, it doesn't matter. The moment a bomb is blown, it's going to demoralize the entire world.
No, but what you just said though about like how AOC and company don't want to empathize with Putin is exactly the point of the speech. It's JFK is saying, put yourself in the shoes of the Soviets. Look, we don't have to like communism to admire their great history and culture.
But the point is, it isn't communism. It's a new form of capitalism. It's an authoritarian state. Okay, they have a form of democracy. In other words, the Americans won't admit this, but the truth is, if you travel through Russia, you'll see that if Putin were not popular enough, he'd be out. That's the way the Russian system works. It's a rough system, tough neighborhood, but if you're not doing what the popular will is, you will be sussed out and removed, as Khrushchev was. Khrushchev was considered too much of an adventurer for what he did in the Cuban Missile Crisis, and they got rid of him. And he was totally in charge, we thought, but they got rid of him. And that happens quietly on the Soviet side, and then it happened when we went to the post-communist world with Yeltsin. Yeltsin was a democratically elected, but he had tremendous flaws too. Putin took over and stabilized the country, and so from 2000 to 2023 you will see Russia really got stronger, and it was constantly, and I traced all this in the interviews. It was constantly attacked. There was not one moment when they let up on Putin. It got worse after 2007 when he made his speech at Munich. He did that speech, and you see John McCain, the senator who loves war with Russia, he's sneering at him. All the Americans have never respected the Russian point of view, which is why he's so patient, because it's unbelievable how many red line warnings were given to America before the 22 situation happened in Ukraine. They were maybe you can even say the fault of Putin, and he can be faulted for this, is he should have realized this in 2014 when the United States pulled off this coup that Victoria Nuland is responsible for, largely responsible for, with Jeffrey Pyatt, the ambassador to Ukraine. When that happened, that was, as you remember, the eastern provinces, Donetsk and Lugansk, were up in arms. They were already, and Crimea was up in arms. Those people are Russian ethnics. They're not going to go along with a new government this anti-Russian, and that was the whole issue. So Putin maybe should have acted then, and he didn't want to because he wanted to be well. It was a very tenuous position with the United States too. He still believed, I believe, in a partnership. In our documentary, he kept saying our partners, our partners. I got upset with him. I said, why are you always referring to the United States as your partners? They're not your partners. That was the essence of our disagreements. I was wondering, but he still believed in the possibility of negotiation. I believe that's what he thought would happen. He made warnings. He made warnings about this. We're not going to have NATO on our southern in the Ukraine, and we can't. If I put weapons on the border of Canada or Mexico, you'd go nuts in the United States. You'd be at war. But you have no respect for us as a sovereign country. We're sovereign. Sovereignty means we do it our way. We're our country. You're not going to tell us how to run our country, which is exactly what John Kennedy is saying. We have to respect the sovereignty of these other countries, which we didn't do. After World War II, we ran over the sovereignty of Europe. England is basically a slave, is an intelligence agency working for us, and France. I mean, De Gaulle tried, and he did separate, and I think France has really shown some courage in the nuclear department, certainly, but. The sovereignty of these countries has been compromised with military bases all over their countries, and Okinawa, Japan, Korea, uh, Italy, Turkey. Now, Turkey, thank God, is coming back. They have some sovereignty now, we know, with Erdogan. But sovereignty is a key issue that he keeps mentioning in his speeches, and no one in the United States seems to pick up on it. They don't repeat his speeches properly. They distort his speeches into our line of propaganda.
Mr. Stone, I have two more questions, but before I go, Kynan, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here still.
I want to give you an opportunity to ask any follow up you want, and then we'll stop with two more questions.
Sure. Mr. Stone, I wanted to get your thoughts on a recent admission that RFK Jr. made on the Sean Hannity show when he was asked about the death of his brother, his father, excuse me. And he had said, I'll just quote it, that the day that my uncle was killed, I was picked up at Sidwell Friends School and brought home. The first phone call that my father made after J. Edgar Hoover told him that his brother had been shot was to the CIA desk officer in Langley. It was only a mile from our house, and then my father said to him, did your people do this? And then he goes on to describe his father asking the same question to Henry Lewis, who was one of the Cuban Bay of Pigs leaders, and John McCone, the head of the CIA then. So I want your thoughts on his recent admission and the importance of a member of the Kennedy family saying something like this.
It is important, but I'm surprised because I knew this and we've heard it before. Robert Kennedy was clearly moving in that direction, and several people have come out and said that he was definitely going to reopen the case. Now that has been questioned, but it seems to hold up that people who knew his intention was he was going to reopen the case, and that scared a lot of people because they knew they were guilty. So that adds to the motivation to kill him. And as we know, that is one of the most screwed up assassinations of all time. It's really dumb. I mean, you have all the shots from the front, and it seems like he was shot from the rear, definitely with that second gun from the security guard called Cesar Thane, I think it was called.
I'm going to stop it now. You can see it on YouTube. I just played a little bit of it. It's a very good clip, and I'm really a fan of Oliver Stone. Thank you.